Hello and welcome to Eric's Chase Grid Talk. And today's episode, I'll be reviewing Dover, the third race of the chase, and the final race of the Challenger round, in which we have eliminated four who had been hopeful for winning a champion, for becoming the champion. We got 4 out, which means only 12 remain. So yeah, let's jump right into it, shall we? Nothing else to really, dwell upon announcement-wise for me at least. I got race 6 from Watkins Glen is in the works. It'll be up eventually. I mean, I'm behind on it. I'll be the first one to admit it. I was hoping by now I would usually be done or really close to being done filming most of these. Right now I'm literally on lap 2. That's how much I've filmed of this thing. Now Watkins Glen's a big track, so obviously it takes longer that way, but I've also been extremely busy. I'm going to work on that as soon as I finish this. So, yeah, let's get this over with. To main recap from Dover, Jeff Gordon gets his 4th victory of the season. So, congratulations to Jeff Gordon. He was my pick for the championship, by the way. And, I'm not a fan of Jeff Gordon, so I was a little like, when he won. At the same time, though, I did pick him to win the championship, so I'll feel good about that. Haha. Now we'll talk about the 4 guys that were eliminated, because everyone's into the drama of the NASCAR chase. Who's eliminated? Who's going to move on? How is this going to work? 4 drivers that are eliminated are literally the 4 drivers that I'll bet most of you guys had being knocked out of the first round. I'll be honest. I expected there to be at least 1 or 2 surprises. I expected maybe Hamlin to be a possible surprise, or Casey Kane I thought had a chance of being a surprise guy that gets knocked out. But no. And in the end, it was Allmendinger, Kurt Busch, Greg Biffle, and Aric Almirola, the 4 guys that have consistently not been as good as the other chase drivers pretty much this whole season. And I don't mean to brag again, but I also picked them to be the first 4 out as well. So I'm on a roll in terms of picks. That means I'm picking Matt Kenseth to win at Kansas this week because he's my favorite driver. And if I'm on such a roll picking people, I'm going to go and pick him to win. So you can quote me on that one. So I'm looking at the point standings right now, and I know the first question that's in all you guys' heads is there's not much to recap from Dover other than the fact that AJ Allmendinger, Greg Biffle, Kurt Busch, and Aric Almirola all ran like crap, while guys like Denny Hamlin, Matt Kenseth, Ryan Newman, and Casey Kane all ran pretty well and easily advanced. That's basically all you can take away from that. Nobody really had any major struggles. At the same time, nobody exactly blew anyone away at the same time. But I think it's pretty obvious at this point that the 12 best moved on and the 4 worst in the chase were eliminated. And I don't mean that I don't mean to offend people that are big fans of those drivers, because obviously I know a lot of people like Almirola and Biffle and Busch and Allmendinger. I know they got a good fan base, but let's be realistic now. My biggest negative with this chase format coming in was the idea that Jimmy Johnson or Brad Keselowski had the possibility of being eliminated after just 1 round. If they just wreck 1 week, all of a sudden they're out of the chase, and I just felt like that's a little, harsh, I mean, it's because AJ Allmendinger and Greg. Let me use AJ Allmendinger as a prime example. AJ Allmendinger has had a 20th place car and has basically run 20th every race of all these first 3 races, or let's say the first 2 races. That's where he ran, and that's pretty much where he finished. But coming into this final race, he was 10th in the points, which means he would have advanced. And I just don't feel like guys that should be finished that are running 20th place and finishing in 20th deserve to have a shot at the championship. That's my opinion. So I was a little nervous then when I thought, I like Allmendinger, so I kind of was rooting for him to move on. But at the same time, I was kind of like, this isn't good if not as good of competitors are moving on and other guys possibly aren't. Like, that's kind of how I was feeling. When I looked at it and saw Kurt Busch and Denny Hamlin on the outside looking in with guys like AJ Allmendinger on the inside, I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. Hamlin and Busch are clearly more deserving than Allmendinger. Why is he in the chase right now? So at least Hamlin got back in, knocked Allmendinger out. I mean, sorry for Allmendinger, but in the end, I think the right team prevailed. Kurt Busch, I thought that they deserved to be a move on, but after the way they ran yesterday, really, it backed up the theory that he's not really a championship driver at the moment. Oh, no, that's a good Cheez-It. I love Cheez-Its. Sorry, I got distracted. What was I talking about? All right. I think that's all I need to talk about the guys that didn't move on. No real surprises. Eric Almirola, he ran so well. He ran really well at Chicagoland and New Hampshire. Obviously had a really bad luck at Chicagoland that put him in a huge hole. Got the good finish at New Hampshire that he needed. And he just needed to do another one of those this week. And unfortunately, he really picked a bad week to just not show up. And yeah, that's why he's not in the chase. Greg Biffle has just been terrible since the chase started. Really, since 2014 started, he's been no good. I mean, I still am a little surprised he even made it into the chase. I forgot he was in the sport for a while there, and there he was in the chase, and he just didn't perform. The Roush Fenway cars are not performing. Edwards is the only one that's showing any signs of life right now, and even he's not really a top 10, top 5 threat, which is weird for Carl Edwards, but not going to dwell on that. I'm going to move on to the happier subjects for the drivers that have moved on. Obviously, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, and Jeff Gordon moved on because they won the 3 races. Good for them. But the other guys all had to race their way in on points, and some of the guys, like I mentioned, Casey Kane, Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards, Ryan Newman, Matt Kenseth, they all had to race their way on points this last week, and they were some of those guys that were kind of on that bubble spot they talked about coming in. And really, a lot of those guys ran well. All those guys finished in the top 15, and that's what it took to end up advancing. Oh, minus Kane. My bad. Casey Kane finished 20th. He didn't really run that well, but he still moved in. Or moved on. Here's the thing. I know the first question a lot of you guys are going to ask me is going to be, oh, who do you think is going to be eliminated in this round? Now that you've seen who's moved on, now who do you think is going to be eliminated in the contender round? Because I've learned my name, the names of the level of the rounds now. I told you guys last week. I didn't even know what they were called. I know them now. I did my homework. I know what they're all called now. So now we're in the contender round, and I gotta tell you, the 4 guys that I think are going to be eliminated. I wouldn't be surprised. I bet a lot of people would agree with me. I bet a lot of people would disagree with me on maybe 1 or 2 of them. But I think at least a couple of these guys, a lot of you guys will agree with me on. Here's who I have in no particular order. I don't know who's going to be 12th and who's going to be 8th or 9th. But here's the guys that I think will not move on to this next round. First and foremost, I think Ryan Newman will not move on. And here's why. Ryan Newman... That team, I'm impressed with them having made the chase. RCR is really what they lost Harvick in the offseason, so 2014 did not really have much hope for them. They had a rookie in Austin Dillon racing. Paul Menard really hasn't done much, and Ryan Newman was really their only hope. And I'm glad he made the chase. He's been consistent this year. He hasn't had a dominant car. Really hasn't even competed for wins at all. But he's done a good job. He's always a top 5, top 10 threat just about every week. And so I wish I could say he's moving on, but I think what I've seen from a few guys that in the regular season really weren't as good, but I feel like it seems like they've stepped it up a little bit here these last couple weeks. Guys like, just as an example, I'll use Casey Kane as an example, I'll use Denny Hamlin as a potential example, and I'll use Matt Kenseth as another example. Those are 3 drivers that kind of were right around Newman. A couple of those guys, Hamlin and Kane, were actually behind Newman in the standings for most of the regular season. But in these last few weeks, those 3 have shown life. Kenseth has got another top 5 this week. Denny Hamlin ran top 5 for most of the race. He slipped a little bit late, but he's definitely looking strong. And Casey Kane, he got that win at Atlanta, and he was able to advance here into this next round. And I think that shows that he's doing good. I want to move Ryan Newman forward, but I just don't think I can because there's just a little too much, not talent, just too much strength ahead of him right now in the standings that I just don't think it's too competitive these days, and I just don't think Ryan Newman's team and that it's really RCR. I don't think it's Newman. I think it's just RCR. They're not up to snuff with all the other teams. I've never used up to snuff before. That sounds really weird. Ugh, need to bleep that out. All right, so that's one guy that I don't have moving on. The second guy that I do not have moving on is Carl Edwards, and here's why. It basically goes along with the whole Roush Fenway Racing has been lousy thing. And it really, I thought, oh, maybe there's a chance with the chase starting, they'll get better. I was clearly wrong. Greg Biffle was terrible this whole chase, and that's why he's not in it anymore. Carl Edwards is lucky to be in it. The only reason he advanced is because he had those 2 wins from the regular season, and those bonus points are basically all that scootalooed him along and got him into this next round. But now that everyone's even, I think it's safe to say Carl Edwards is not going to be good enough to make that top 8. And those Roush Fenway engines, they just aren't capable of hanging with the Gibbs, the Hendrick, and the Penske cars, or even the Stewart-Haas car of Kevin Harvick. It's going to be tough for Edwards. I mean, it's been a tough year for Roush, and Edwards, of course, he's going to be leaving to go to Gibbs, so things are only going to get worse for Roush. But I think Edwards is going to give it a good effort, but unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be able to advance. Third person that I do not have advancing is Kasey Kahne. And I know I just was talking about how I thought Kasey Kahne, they've definitely turned it around a little bit, and they're definitely maybe looking a little bit more they seem to be challenging for wins and challenging for good finishing positions more often now than they were a few months ago. But I still, again, it kind of goes with the same thing that Ryan Newman has happened. It's so competitive out there right now. There's so many guys. I mean, we have basically each weekend, we have at least 20 cars that I'd say have a shot going in of winning the race. I mean, I feel like NASCAR in their further back history did not have nearly as much of that. There's a lot more dynasties, kind of. In football and basketball, I mean, the Miami Heat have always been good for a while. San Antonio Spurs have been good for the longest time. In football, the New England Patriots have been good forever. I mean, you see these dynasties. In NASCAR, you used to have the Richard Pettys, the Dale Earnhardts, the Jeff Gordons that were just so dominant, or were very, very just so dominant during their stretches and won so many races and a lot of championships. And nowadays, you don't really see that. Yeah, okay, Jimmy Johnson's won 5 straight championships, and so obviously that looks like a dominating run. But you look at how he did it. It's not like he went out and just won half the races each year and just was clearly the sure favorite. He edged it out ever so slightly every year to the point where it could have gone either way. So you look at how things are now, and it's just clearly you got a lot more guys that are capable of winning the championship than you've had in the past. And I just think for guys like Ryan Newman and Kasey Kahne, that doesn't help them out much in this chase. And then my fourth and final guy that I do not have advancing, and this is going to be the guy that I think a lot of you guys are going to disagree with me on, if you guys do. I don't have Kyle Busch moving on. And here's why. And this just hear me out. I know a lot of you Kyle Busch fans are like, how dare you? Kyle Busch has been so good lately. And that's true. Kyle Busch has been running very consistently in this chase. He's had good finishes at all 3 tracks. He's looked good. He's looked better than he has for most of the year. But here's the problem. It doesn't come down to speed for Kyle Busch, in my opinion. It comes down to the tracks and Kyle's. In my opinion, I think it's going to come down to Kyle Busch's racing ability. And that's not saying Kyle's a bad driver. We all know that Kyle Busch is an incredible driver. He can drive a stock car better than just about anybody else out there. But you look at the tracks in this next section. We got Kansas, Charlotte, and Talladega. Kansas has been not the nicest place at all for Kyle Busch. I remember, I think it was last year. I think it was last spring, actually. It was the Kansas race then, where Kyle Busch ran the Truck Series, Nationwide Series, and Sprint Cup Series races all in one weekend. He ran all 3 races, all at Kansas. He spun out at least once in every single one of those races, including multiple times in the Nationwide and Cup Series races, I remember. And that was when people realized Kyle Busch is not good at Kansas. And so, obviously, that it's been it's been a year. Obviously, so Kyle Busch is definitely he's probably figured it out more since then. But obviously what I'm saying is that, along with the fact that the Gibbs cars have not been super duper strong on mile and a half this year, they've been solid, but they have not been dominant like they were last year. Those 2 things I think will make Kansas a tough race for Kyle Busch. Here's what's going to make Kyle Busch advance. If Kyle Busch can get through Kansas with a top 5 finish, I think he'll move on. But I don't think he's going to do that, so that's why I have him being eliminated. And obviously, one bad race isn't going to necessarily completely knock you out of this chase, but that's where Talladega comes in. Charlotte, I think Kyle Busch will be fine. It's a mile and a half, though, so you never know. I don't think he's going to be great, but I think he'll be good, so Charlotte's not a worry. Talladega, though, is not the type of track that fits Kyle Busch's racing style. We all know Kyle Busch is an aggressive driver, and Talladega, there's going to be wrecks. A lot of guys are going to get taken out that didn't deserve to be taken out. And unfortunately, I feel like Kyle Busch is more prone to getting taken out at Talladega due to his more aggressive racing style and that kind of deal. I feel like this is really, there's really no way to 100% predict this, but I just have this gut feeling that Kyle Busch will get involved in a wreck at Talladega, and that will really hurt his championship hopes. It's the type of thing. Talladega is going to be survival for a lot of drivers. Unfortunately, though, I just feel like Kyle Busch is going to get caught up in something. Whether he even starts it or not, it's not been plate tracks. Really, it seems like Kyle Busch is getting wrecked at plate tracks a lot. And unfortunately for him, that's not good in the chase. That's gonna knock you out. So those are my 4 that I have getting knocked out: Ryan Newman, Carl Edwards, Kasey Kahne, and Kyle Busch. So all the cuz getting knocked out. Carl, Casey, Kyle. Yeah. Very few cuz are surviving. Keselowski, I guess I have surviving. Kenseth, I have surviving. Yeah, that's about it. Kevin, if you count Kevin Harvick. Anyway, so yeah, that leads to those 8 that I said I have advancing, and leave a comment in the comments if you disagree with me. I'll debate with you in the comments all you want. I'll try to keep things. Don't leave a comment that says something like "Eric, you freaking idiot," with emphasis on the freaking part. "Eric, you freaking idiot! Kyle Busch is the best driver. He's gonna beat everyone." Those comments, I'm gonna ignore you, or leave a really sarcastic comment back, and you don't want to be the butt of any of my jokes. It's not gonna be fun. So if you want to leave a civilized comment in the comment sections, I'll talk to you about it. I don't care. I got nothing else to do other than film Watkins Glen. I have no life. I'm just kidding. Or am I? I don't know. Okay. Well, how long has this video been going? 16 minutes? 16 plus? Alright, that's not too bad. Then I feel like this is... I'm trying to get into the flow of this whole... it's not even... I don't want to call it like a podcast or a radio show. It's like... It's a YouTube podcast. If that even... I know those exist. I've seen people do those before where they do podcasts but upload them straight to YouTube. Because for me personally, I have... This is where all my assets lie. I don't have a bunch of fans on iTunes that will download my podcast. I have a bunch of people here that will watch my YouTube videos. So go to where the audience is. That's what I always say. But that's all I have to talk about this week. I'm planning on I'll make another episode on Thursday like I usually do. I'm feeling a lot better today. Last week I made 2 short episodes because I was feeling really crappy. This week I feel good again. If you can't tell, I'm just really bouncing around in my office chair right now. I'm just so excited. It's been a good week for me. Good weekend. I'm excited. So the chase will move on. We'll go to Kansas. I'll give you guys my predictions for that. Well, even though I kind of already said who I thought would win, but that was just, I don't know. I might rethink that. That's all I have from here, from my studio /room. I will see you guys Thursday.